Mogul Performance Podcast. This is where we explore the mindset, tools, and strategies to help modern leaders rise above the noise, lead with clarity, and perform with purpose while leaving a legacy. I am your host, Evan, and I am the founder and head coach at Mogul Performance. And today, we are diving into the most powerful leadership concepts I've seen in action over and over and over again. And what is that? That is the 3% rule. In this episode, this is for the high performers, the leaders who want to keep growing, they want to keep leading, who want to keep winning in today's competitive environment, but they don't want to burn out trying to do it all. But first, before we get into it, let's do a quick little promo. If you are new here or you haven't checked it out yet, go ahead over to the mogulperformance.com website and go ahead and click on the resources and download some of our free and latest tools. These are tools that we use with our clients here at Mogul Performance. So go ahead and download those. Whether you are an executive, you are a business owner, you are a team leader, you are an emerging leader, you are a first-time leader, Mogul Performance helps build clarity, consistency, and resilience through one-to-one coaching and strategic development. All right, with that being said, let's jump into it. So what is the 3% rule? It is the idea that world-class leaders don't necessarily need to be working 10 times harder than everyone else. They simply need to be 3% better, 3% more sharp, 3% more consistent, 3% more intentional every single day. So think about this. 3% more reflection on yourself instead of reacting. 3% more clarity, more time before making a big decision. 3% more feedback that you are giving and that you're also asking to receive. 3% more intentional communication in high stakes meetings. So what's the theme here? It's putting a little bit more, just a little bit more every single day. It's not about being perfect. It's just about being better to create the long-term separation from average leadership. If you're listening to this podcast, you are not an average leader. This is a game of compounding advantage. So let's talk about the science and psychology for a moment behind the 3% rule. The 3% rule works because something we see in peak performers are consistency beats intensity. Big pushes, those are exhausting. Always being intense, always pushing forward. I get it. Some people can say I can be an intense individual, but intensity over the long term will eventually burn out. But you can get that intensity back, but you have to be careful on how you utilize it. It's like the saying goes, it's a marathon, not a sprint. But when you're running that marathon, how do you win? You go faster than the person that you're running against. The big pushes, those are exhausting things that we do as leaders. The small edges, they're repeatable. If you improve one leadership behavior by 3% every quarter, you're not only improving, you are rebuilding the foundation of how you show up. And over time, those small edges become a canyon between you and the person who decided that they would stay a little bit more comfortable that day. Over and over again. Now think about athletes. They don't change everything overnight. They simply focus on marginal gains. The things that are just enough to give them the edge. There's plenty of examples out there on the internet. If you look up what marginal gains are, it comes down to even just making sure there's not dust on the floor. If you are in a bicycling race, so that dust doesn't get into the gears and helps the bike go a little bit faster, right? It could be painting things white to make things more clear or more visible to get the dust that you can't see. Leaders should be thinking the same way. What is that small thing that you can do? One example, right? What I'm looking at right now is I'm looking at my laptop and my camera. A few years ago, what I did was I was noticing that when I was working on my laptop, I was constantly looking down. And by looking down, I felt like I was actually getting a little more sleepy throughout the day. Then I listened to a podcast and it talked about how if your eyes are above the top 50% of your vision, that actually helps you wake up versus when it's below that, you get more drowsy. So what did I do? I bought a stand and I put my laptop on a stand. So now when I'm working, I'm always looking up. Small change. As a $15 investment, a small change with a great impact. And we need to be thinking about that the same way. So let's make this actionable. Where can you actually apply the 3% rule right now? Well, first, you've heard me talk about this before, emotional fitness. Can you take one extra pause before you react? Maybe you try to expand that pause. If it's the 3% rule, maybe that's 3 seconds. And 3 seconds can feel like a long time, but use those pauses. That single pause can change the tone of a meeting or relationship. Allow space for people to think. Decision making. Spend 3 more percent on clarifying the real problem. Slow down to make smarter moves faster. And then coaching and feedback. Give one more piece of feedback a week, just to anyone, and share that. Or recognize somebody for the work that they're doing. Or ask one more reflective question for yourself. We have plenty of tools and resources that we have on our Mogul Performance website that you can look at that have reflective questions on there. Utilize those. Check out our Instagram and our LinkedIn and our Facebook. Plenty of reflective questions that we're constantly posting on there. Wellness and resilience. 3% more movement. We're not getting enough movement. As leaders and moguls, sometimes we're bound to our desks. We're bound to our chairs. As you can see, I'm standing up. Small changes, big impact. 3% more sleep. With being in a leadership position, being a business owner, you're probably not getting that much sleep. But what if it's just 3% more? Making that slight edge. You're getting an extra 10, 15 minutes that night. And that does not mean to be hitting snooze. Do not mistake this with hitting snooze. And the last 3% is 3% less screen time at night. In fact, I would even argue just get rid of it. Don't look at your phone for the last 30 minutes. So we'll put an extra 0 on there. Do not look at your phone for the last 30 minutes of your day. This is how you build resilience. This is how you build what I call the willpower tank that doesn't have to be emptied by the time noon arises and you've already had difficult conversations. You were a little bit late to work. Your tire went flat. You had that resilience and you're able to build it. And then learning and growth. Read one more article. Reflect one more time a week. That's how you expand your vision without overloading your plate. So here is what I'll call the Mogul Challenge. Pick one area that you have just been cruising and coasting, and you know what that area is. Think about it. What have you been doing too much of? What seems a little bit easy? What haven't you been doing that you should be doing? It could be feedback, it could be time management, it could be self-awareness. Whatever stands out, pick that one area. Then define what 3% looks like. Maybe it is blocking off 15 minutes to think about before making a big decision. Maybe it's getting a stand for your laptop. Maybe it's standing up at your desk. Maybe it's writing one more sentence of praise to a team member. Maybe in that sentence, you spend an extra 30 seconds to look at that sentence and see if that captures how you're actually feeling. And then create a simple feedback loop, a weekly check-in, quick reflection, and progress tracking. See how you're doing. Something that I did when I was trying to improve my active listening skills, I had about 100 pennies, no, not 100 pennies. I had 50 pennies in my pocket for the day. 50 pennies in my left pocket. And anytime that I realized that I interrupted a conversation, I pulled that penny out and I put it in my right pocket. And if I ended the day with 50 pennies, man, I was not being a good active listener. But if I ended the day with 3 pennies or 0 pennies in the other pocket, I was improving my active listening. And I was seeing that in real time. It's simple choices like that. It does not need to be complicated. And with that being said, make it visible. Hold yourself accountable. Tell a coach, tell your mentor, tell your friends, tell your family. Some people say keep your goals to yourself. I am not about that. I say you should be sharing your goals because that keeps you accountable. Share it with your team. That is going to keep you accountable as a leader to make sure that you are executing, you are doing the things that you said that you would do. Because if you don't, that's going to come back on you. And that risk and that weight is going to push you into being accountable. And most importantly, again, don't overcomplicate this. It does not need to be that complicated. The 3% rule isn't about pressure. Okay, we're not putting pressure on ourselves on these kind of things. It's about being persistent. It's about presence and the progress that we make throughout over time. And I'm talking about when you're looking at this 3%, we're not talking about how 3% is going to make you better in a month. It's 3% is going to make you better in a year. These things take time, but a year goes by like that. And if you are improving 3% every single day in different areas of your life over the course of the year, I guarantee when we talked about those cracks versus canyons, you will be a canyon away from the competition. So here's the takeaway today. You don't need to overhaul your life to lead better. That's not what you need to do, and that's not what I'm asking. That's not what I'm telling you to do. You just need to commit to improving with discipline. The 3% rule is how you separate yourself from the noise, from the good, from the almost great, from the average. It's small, it's repeatable, and it changes the game when it is applied consistently. So, let me ask you this. What's your 3%? If you want help identifying it or building a system to grow from it, let's talk. Go ahead and visit mogulperformance.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn, Dr. Evan Lynn, or you can find us at Mogul Performance on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook. Thanks again for tuning in to the Mogul Performance Podcast. And for now, go out there and don't just lead, but be a mogul.